Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into an absolutely unforgettable story, Khaled Hosseini's masterpiece, A Thousand Splendid Suns. Now, this is a novel that takes us through 4 turbulent decades of Afghan history, but it does it all through the eyes of 2 incredibly resilient women. So where does that incredible title even come from? Well, it's pulled from this beautiful 17th century poem about the city of Kabul. And honestly, it's the perfect metaphor for the whole story, isn't it? It's all about that hidden beauty, that incredible strength you find just beneath the surface, behind walls of war and oppression. So yeah, this story is really a tale of 2 women. At its heart, this is so much more than a history lesson. It's this deeply personal story about survival, about hope, and, the incredible power of a friendship that you'd never see coming. We're going to follow 2 women from totally different generations whose lives are destined to crash into one another. And at the heart of it all are our 2 protagonists, Mariam and Laila. We're going to follow their individual journeys, which, believe me, start in completely different worlds. But fate has a way of working, and they're going to end up colliding, tragically, under the roof of one single, brutal man in Kabul. Okay, let's start with Mariam, the outcast. Her story begins, well, right from birth, really. Her entire life is shaped and honestly tainted by just one single shameful word. And that word is harami, an illegitimate child, a bastard. For Mariam, this isn't just some label, it's a cage. It literally dictates her place in the world, cutting her off from her father's real family and, setting her on this path of just crushing loneliness and hardship. So, after a family tragedy, a teenage Mariam, and she is just a teenager, is forced into a marriage with Rashid, a guy who was so much older in Kabul. And just like that, her life becomes one of abuse and isolation. Any hope she had for, a family or just some kind of connection, it's just systematically crushed by this cruel man. She is completely alone, trapped in this awful, violent marriage. Okay, so now let's shift gears. A generation later, in that very same city, we meet Laila. And her story, Laila, a daughter of Kabul, could not be more different. Laila's father, Bobby, tells her, "I know you're still young, but I want you to understand that marriage can wait, education cannot." See, Laila is raised by this incredibly progressive, loving dad, a teacher who just fills her head with poetry and dreams. He truly believes she has a right to an education and encourages her to imagine a future that's way bigger than just marriage. But this world she knows, a world of school, friendships, even first love, it's completely shattered when war finally comes to Kabul. A single rocket destroys her home, kills her parents, and in one horrific instant, obliterates everything. She's left an orphan, badly injured, and just completely vulnerable. I mean, just look at the difference here. When you put their childhoods side by side, the contrast is just wow. Mariam's youth was rural, isolated, labeled an outcast, denied an education, and forced into marriage. Laila's was urban, modern, she was cherished, encouraged to go to school, and she dreamed of a career. Mariam's life represents this restrictive, traditional past, while Laila's is like this brief, shining moment of hope for women in Afghanistan. A hope that, as we're about to see, is brutally extinguished. And this right here is where everything changes. This is where their 2 separate stories tragically come together, forming a sisterhood of survival. Laila's horrible luck leads her right into Mariam's world, under the very same oppressive roof. So what happens is Laila gets pulled from the rubble of her home by none other than Mariam's husband, Rashid. He takes her in, but his charity comes with a huge price. He soon marries her, making her his second wife. And at first, they are bitter rivals, Mariam and Laila. But slowly, their shared suffering under Rashid's cruelty starts to forge this incredible, unbreakable bond between them. And all of this is happening against this incredibly chaotic historical backdrop. You see, in 1988, the Soviets withdraw. Then by 92, the Mujahideen take Kabul, and the city just collapses into this brutal civil war. And then in 1996, the Taliban seize power. This political turmoil, it isn't just news on the radio for them. It's the very force that destroys Laila's family and eventually brings the Taliban right to their front door.
In life under the Taliban, it becomes a waking nightmare, especially for women. Look at these laws. Girls forbidden from school, women forbidden from working. You have to be covered by a burqa outside. You can't laugh in public. You can't make eye contact with men. And if you're accused of adultery, you're stoned to death. For Mariam and Laila, their home was already a prison, but now it becomes even more suffocating.
But in the middle of all this horror, what began as a rivalry transforms into this deep, almost mother-daughter love. Mariam and Laila find their only comfort, their only strength, in each other. Mariam, who could never have kids of her own, becomes a mother to Laila. And Laila, who lost her mom, finds this fierce protector in Mariam. They become each other's salvation. But that profound bond is about to be tested in the most extreme way you can imagine. This is what leads to the story's devastating climax, an unthinkable sacrifice. It starts with a vicious attack. Rashid finds out that Laila was planning to escape with her children, and his years of simmering rage just explode. He attacks Laila and he starts to strangle her. This leads to a desperate choice. Mariam is watching this happen, and she knows Rashid isn't going to stop. He is going to kill Laila. In that single, split second, she has to make an impossible choice. Do nothing and watch the only person she loves die, or do something that will absolutely seal her own fate. And so, she makes a final sacrifice. Really, for Mariam, it isn't a choice at all. To save Laila, to save her children, to give them the future that she was never allowed to have, she kills Rashid. It's the ultimate act of love. But Mariam's sacrifice means something. It means everything. The suns rise again. Her act breaks the cycle of violence, and it allows Laila to finally escape, carrying Mariam's legacy with her into a whole new world. Laila does eventually reunite with her childhood love, Tariq. And after the Taliban fall, they face a really difficult choice. But instead of staying safe, they decide to return to Kabul to help rebuild. Laila chooses hope over safety. She goes back to work at an orphanage, honoring Mariam by helping create a better future for the children of Afghanistan. As the book says, Laila thinks of her own life, and she is astonished that she too has survived. In the end, she becomes one of those 1,000 splendid sons from the poem. She is the living proof of the resilience of the human spirit, that hope and love can somehow endure and even shine in the absolute darkest of times. And so, the novel leaves us with this incredibly powerful question. How do you rebuild a life when all you've known is loss? It's really a celebration of more than just survival. It's about the immense courage it takes to look at total ruin and still find the strength to plant a garden, to create hope for the next generation.